This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
SEC Media Days are it's about a handful of days away. Let's talk with Bill King from Nashville Sports Radio, the king of college football talk. He is on WNSR 6 to 9. Bill, talking season is upon us. I know it's you call it the non-portion playing of the season. Does next week stand out to you at all, though? Because we're going to be hearing from coaches and some players and a lot of other media members exhausting hot air.
I'm in the tiny minority here. Now, if there's some Oklahoma, Texas news like we got 2 summers ago, sure. But typically it's an event just about bloviating, which is fine. It just does me no good. I will not be. My last one was 2013. I did 25 of them, went from 88 to 13. And Emmitt Smith was in my first one. I'll just remember that one. And I've done enough. Nothing comes out of it. I know the fans love it. I know the media loves it. There's nothing that compares to the SEC Media Days. If you took them all and combined them, they would not equal the SEC because I've done them all. I mean, it's sparse compared to the SEC. But as far as actually gaining knowledge, it's useless for a guy like me.
I want to see how early each coach uses the word culture in their opening statement. I wonder, you have the verboten list, words that you won't allow in your show. Is culture anywhere on that list?
I don't think so. It's a list that's grown through the years. Now, it might need to be, but it's the old, and I don't know if they'll say it here, but it's, couldn't be better. Our off-season, we've never had an off-season like that. The freshmen are more equipped to play and help out than any group we've ever had, and we've never had more of a buy-in. Now, buy-in is on the verboten list. Yeah, buy-in is, but that's the kind of stuff you hear, at least in August. I don't know if we'll hear it in Nashville at Media Days, but that's what you hear everybody report in the summer.
You're going to hear this year, the transfer portal. We've added so much depth to this team through the transfer portal this year. Bill?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
No, I'm just going to say true, and that is something that we've added, the last couple of years, and that's a true statement. And I think names like Lane Kiffin and LSU, too, to a certain extent, they've really taken advantage of it. Florida State.
That's what I was going to ask you. Did Tennessee and Vanderbilt, did all the teams in the SEC, did they all take advantage? Arkansas, we really overhauled. There's a lot of new faces that we got in the transfer portal. I would imagine that we're probably towards the top end, but have all these teams kind of embraced this transfer portal going out and getting college kids?
Yeah, it's just hard to get kids into Vanderbilt. Number one, it's not real attractive, right, comparatively speaking. And number two, the administration at times can be ogres, right? They don't try and help out much. So it's tough at Vanderbilt. Tennessee, I'd say bringing in about 7, a big-time receiver out of Oregon, a defensive lineman out of Arizona State, a linebacker and a safety out of BYU, 2 offensive linemen. So they're probably bringing in about 8.
Like you mentioned, unless there's huge news that's breaking, like a major school moving conference, which is not happening right now, won't happen for at least another year. I don't think there's going to be any kind of news like that. The big news in college football right now, of course, is what's happened at Northwestern with Pat Fitzgerald, who had, he's such an important piece of that football program as a player and for the last 16 years as a coach. Do you think that if they wouldn't have been 1-11 this last year, that he would have kept his job? Or is that because this, when you read the details of what some players claim happened, and apparently corroborated by 11 former and current players, according to the Northwestern school president, I'm just not sure anybody would have been able to continue coaching the team, whether they knew it or not. We now, we're in this world now where the buck stops with a coach. Claiming ignorance of what's going on is not enough any longer. But with a better record, do you think he'd have kept his job?
Probably. They're 4-20 the last 2 years. They won the West in 2020. 4-20, 1-11. The future's not good. He's done a fantastic job. Guys, there's not a coach for any college team in any sport more indigenous to that university, their university, than Pat Fitzgerald. He is Mr. Chicago. He's Mr. Evanston, Illinois. He's Mr. Northwestern. He's had ample opportunities to leave out of there knowing they were better jobs, and he's never wanted to do it. That's home. He was in the third year on a new contract, 10-year deal, worth about $6 million a year, 5.8, something like that. And they're trying to fire him for cause. So this is going to get litigated, and if Northwestern's smart, they'll go ahead and settle them somewhere, because you don't want this dragging out a couple of years in court.
What it leads to is, I remember Northwestern football in the 80s. You remember Playboy used to put out the bottom 20 football programs in the country annually? I read it. Yeah, those are one of the articles in that magazine I read. Northwestern annually was on that list, and I think they're going to be there annually moving forward now.
They are, and he's fought a good fight. It's hard to get players there. Of course, the top lineman in the draft this last year, Peter Skoronski, was the left tackle for them, and he's now here going to be playing for the Titans. But it's hard. It's hard to get players there. It's hard to get them in there. It's like fighting Vanderbilt. Now, it's in a league where they have a little bit better ability to win than Vanderbilt does. And they're in the Western Division, which is advantageous, particularly if you can get Wisconsin down, which Wisconsin's not been right for a couple of years, and Luke Fickell's taken over. But, yeah, it's a tough gig. And, look, I've heard some rumors that he feels like he's been set up. They're doing this to get rid of his salary. I know Pat. I've known Pat a long time, been one-on-one with him, had lunch with him. I've known him a long time. I haven't talked to him about any of this, but I'm shocked that what is alleged and, as you mentioned, corroborated happened on his watch. I am shocked.
Bill, I want to ask you, do you think we can have a back-to-back Heisman Trophy winner, the quarterback out there at USC? Who is your top three going in right now if you were to handicap your top three to win the Heisman this year?
Well, he'd have to be in there. Drake May would have to be in there, and I don't know who I would have third. Maybe KJ Jefferson. Maybe if he has a big year. I'm just throwing that out there. But, I mean, he's got the capability of putting up numbers that would be attractive. He's got to win a bunch of games, as we know.
You think that running back from Michigan, is he going to be healthy enough to go for another 1,700 yards or so?
They are deep there. They've got the best running back room depth-wise, probably. And if you're going top two, probably in America. And Blake Corum is a little 5'9" back, but he's about 205, and you guys watch me, as strong as all get out. And he also is athletic. And, heck, when he was out in the Ohio State game, his backup went for 200. So they're in really good shape there. I don't know if he'll have the yardage. They'll have the number of wins you need. I don't know if he'll get the overall yardage. And you got to remember, voters in any sport tend to not want a repeat winner. So that's going against Caleb Williams. He could have the best year and maybe not get voted just because voters don't like doing that.
Is this go ahead, Phil.
No,
I was going to say, is this Harbaugh's year out there at Michigan? They got the quarterback coming back. You said they're going to have the wins. Do you think he could finally get them that national championship they've been looking for?
And they're physical. It might be the most, other than Georgia, might be the most physical team in America. Very physical. The only thing they have not had is the outstanding number of green grass athletes, what I call it. That's just the guy out in space. That's a nightmare, right? They don't have a lot
like
of
a Ted Ginn Jr. or a Percy Harvin.
Correct, correct. And that's what you have to have at that level, and that's the one thing that's missing. I don't think they're good enough to win it yet, but they're good enough to go back. And what's interesting is Ohio State's got better players than Michigan. Michigan's top 5, maybe top 3 in players. Ohio State's top 2 to top 3. But Michigan, style-wise, can punk them, can bully them. But Michigan can't come close to doing that to Georgia, but Ohio State can play Georgia better. It's kind of an interesting dynamic.
Is Penn State sneaky in that? Are they still doing divisions this last year in the Big Ten? But is Penn? You talk with so much talk on Ohio State and Michigan, but I'm reading where this might be Franklin's best team potentially at Penn State.
Top 10 good. Absolutely. The question is where in there. I would say somewhere 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This is probably their best team since the 16 team that opened up losing to Pitt, if you'll remember that. And then they got killed by Michigan, and then they won the league. Remember that? They flipped the whole thing. They beat Ohio State in a huge upset, and they won the league and went out and played in a Rose Bowl game, one of the best Rose Bowl games you'll ever see, and lost it on a kick at the end. But, yes, this is one of their better teams. Do I think they win it? You're going to need Ohio State to get clipped somewhere. Same with Michigan.
BetMGM put their lists out for over-under on the Power 5. Arkansas is one of 6 SEC teams that they've got at 6.5. When you look at the schedule, Arkansas this year, Bill, they've got that 4-game stretch, which I think we've talked about with you before, where they go to Baton Rouge, A&M in Arlington, then to Oxford, then to Tuscaloosa. You got to find a way to win one of those games, then win all your home games and all the non-conference games. Would you look now, 54 days before the season starts, over under 6.5 wins for Arkansas?
We call that sodium pentothal. I don't know if you guys go back, but in the movies back in the 70s, detective movies, when they catch a bad guy and they couldn't get him to talk, they'd give him sodium pentothal. I don't think that's a real thing. It's a real item, but I don't think it's a real truth detector. But I always use that on the show. So that 4-game stretch, guys, is the sodium pentothal, right? That's the truth detector as to what you are. And, you know, if you came to me right now and said, would you take 1 and 3 in that group, I probably would.
Yeah, I was screaming for 2 and 2. I agree with you. It's going to really, and you say this. I mean, we do. It's going to be how healthy do we come out of that stretch? You got to take them one at a time, and can you remain healthy? I mean, that's a tough. That Ole Miss game, they're going to remember that last year. They had just played LSU. They came into our place, and we straight just hit them in the face and made them like it. I just think that'd be a totally different game this year.
All of them, man. I mean, that's as nasty a stretch as probably anybody's going to play. And I know that South Carolina is considered to have one of the toughest schedules. Florida's is brutal because Florida not only plays in the league, but they get Clemson, they get Florida State, which is top 10 good now, and they're in the league, and they also play Utah on the road. So they've got a nasty schedule, too. And South Carolina's got a hard one because they play Clemson. They play in There's a bunch of teams. I think I saw a list of the top 10 hardest schedules, and I think the SEC had about 8 of them.
It's just another year in the SEC, which, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Last thing, Bill, we counted this up. In the NFL draft, Major League Baseball draft, NBA draft, there were 151 players selected out of the SEC. That's 58 players more than any other league. And they had 12 out of 30 top 10 picks in those 3 drafts. So, I mean, we know when we're watching these games, and we've said for years, you just look at the national champions in football and in baseball. You haven't had one in basketball in a long time, but the talent, at least this last year, speaks for itself. That's 58 more players drafted than anybody else into the 3 major leagues. I mean, it's like we're watching a minor league. It really is.
And SEC baseball might be the best of all of them, right? It might be that. It's deeper than as good as we've been talking. SEC football is and how tough Arkansas' schedule is, and all these other teams. Baseball's tougher. Baseball's deeper.
Certainly is, and we see that too because it's like take your pick of which team can win a national title on a yearly basis. Bill.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.